Delilah da down, Delilah da down, Delilah da down. On the home and you me do. Mama kume inyago, Mama kume inyago, Mama kume inyago. Today, and Mama kume inyago, Mama kume inyago, Mama kume inyago. Today, Miss me obiba, obi chimi, obi wumi, obi dishepa na enisaru. Miss me obiba, obi chimi, obi wumi, obi dishepa na enisaru. And all of the boy be nam, naganki naganki, naganki naganki. And all of the boy be nam, naganki naganki, naganki naganki. About one for better training, hey, better training. I'm very shy. About one for better training, hey, better training.
All right, thank you all for tuning in to WJT 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier. I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. Thank you all for tuning in to Money Talks, where all we talk is money. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. We're streaming live on Facebook, Instagram, and we're also live on the radio, WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station, right here in Chicago, Illinois, aka the Windy City. So today, we'll ultimately be talking about how do you budget in a COVID-19 environment. So we'll be going through essentially some budgeting tips. You know, we'll be talking about how do you go ahead and budget for what we've been going through with the whole COVID-19, a pandemic, a crisis, a recession, whatever you want to call it. We'll be talking about some tips and tricks as to how do you go about doing that. A few things. If you'd like to ask a question, contribute, anything like that, please feel free to chime in. We're live on Facebook. You can feel free to post your question right now on Facebook. You can post it on Instagram, so you just put it in the chat. Or you can call into the studio, 773-942-7167. Once again, 773-942-7167. This is a 501c3, not-for-profit organization, so we are always accepting donations, fully tax-deductible charitable contributions. So with that being said, once again, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I know last week we were having some technical issues, but hopefully that's been sorted out today. So remember, we're live on the radio on 98.3 FM. We're also on Facebook, streaming live. And then we're also on Instagram right here to my left, also streaming live. So let's kick it off with the market report. We'll do about 10 minutes or so of market updates, and then the rest of the time, about 30 minutes or so, into the meat of the topic, which is budgeting and preparing yourself in a COVID-19 environment. So what happened in the markets last week? So this report is as of April 3rd of 2020. Stocks continued to rally at the beginning of last week amid hopes of enhanced testing for COVID-19. But by the end of the day, Wednesday, stocks slid with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ posting their largest single-day declines since March of 2018. Energy shares in particular were hit hard. The Dow fell 4.4%, and the small caps of the Russell 2000 continued to collapse, dropping over 7% on Wednesday. Economically, the virus is overwhelming the job market. So the virus is it's bringing so much turmoil right now into the labor market, the job market. A lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of people are losing their jobs. They're filing for unemployment. A lot of people are very confused as to what's happening. I mean, they're scared. They're panicked. Right? So today, my hope is to ease your concerns when it comes to your budget. Right? The focus today is on budgeting because it is a critical component. Remember, a few weeks ago, I said that for those that have not felt the impact of COVID-19 by then, you certainly feel it now. So now is the time that we need to make sure, I mean, we should have done this months ago, but now is the time to really make sure your budget is down packed. I did mention that our budgets will be hit tremendously if we don't plan accordingly in this COVID-19 environment. All right, so the virus basically overwhelmed the job market as the number of unemployment insurance claims broke records for the second consecutive week. 6.6 million people filed for unemployment last week. That's pretty scary. So let's just continue. For the past several weeks, Thursdays have become rebound days for the market, and last Thursday was no exception. Hint, hint. Maybe this Thursday the same thing might just happen. The Dow and the S&P 500 closed the day up 2.25% respectively, while the NASDAQ picked up about 1.75%. Oil prices pushed higher on word of output cuts. But COVID-19 has shrunk the demand for oil, which will likely keep prices in check, even with reduced production. So if you've been driving down a gas station and you've seen lower gas prices, that is exactly why, because basically the output of oil is it's going down because nobody's really buying oil right now. The demand has shrunk tremendously. Nobody's driving. Nobody wants to go outside. So that's why oil prices are down. So if you're an investor, you might want to consider investing in oil. That may be a viable investment at this very given time. Now let's continue. A dismal jobs report drove stocks lower by the close of trading last Friday. It was very ugly in the market last Friday because of a dismal jobs report, for lack of a better term. Analysts believe as poor as this report may be, it doesn't reflect the magnitude of the damage done by the virus. So that means that we can be seeing uglier numbers. And I do believe that we will see some pretty bad numbers. What does that mean? The stock market will probably go down at some point this week. As to when exactly it will go down, you can't really tell. You just have to be prepared. Remember, today's goal is to how to get your budget prepared so that you might even be able to invest into the stock market. Now, they point to the more than 10 million claims for unemployment insurance over the past 2 weeks. 10 million. 10 million claims. 10 million people filed for unemployment in the past 2 weeks alone. As a further indicator that the worst is yet to come. Now, I'm a very optimistic person, but I do believe that we have not seen the worst of it yet. However, we will make a very good recovery over the next few months. As more information is released, investors will be able to assess the economic damage that's done by COVID-19. After rallying to close the prior week with double-digit gains, investors reeled in on those profits last week, pulling the benchmark indexes lower. The small caps of the Russell 2000, composed of the top 2,000 companies or so in the U.S., were hardest hit, falling by 7.0%, followed by the global Dow, which is composed of the top global companies in the world, the Dow, which is composed mainly of technology stocks, and not technology stocks, but the Dow in general, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the S&P 500, which is composed of the top 500 companies in the U.S., and then the NASDAQ, which is composed mainly of technology stocks, the big giant tech companies that we see in the world today. which was the only index not to fall at least 2.0%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note fell to a 3-week low as bond prices soared, also affected by the latest job figures. So overall, it's pretty ugly. Oil prices climbed higher, went up $21.57 per barrel to $28.79 per barrel. The price of COMEX gold went up $16.25.30 per ounce to $16.49.30 per ounce. Now let's look at the numbers, what's happened in the market so far this year. So the Dow Jones is down 26.23% so far this year. The NASDAQ is down 17.83% so far this year. The S&P 500 is down 22.97% so far this year, almost erasing everything that it made last year at 26%. The Russell 2000 is down 36.94%. My goodness. That is very, very scary. Basically meaning the top 2,000 companies in the world, in the U.S., are basically taking a hit. So the 2,000 includes the smaller businesses out there, which, as we know, due to the COVID-19, a lot of companies may end up going bankrupt because they can't keep up with payroll, they can't keep up with rent and things of that nature. I mean, I heard today that a lot of people are basically not paying their mortgage right now on time. So, it's very, very ugly right now. But there's always hope. To any bad, there's always a good. And I challenge you all to find the good in the bad. And today we will be talking about some good stuff. So for me, I'm always looking to be optimistic. I'm always looking to be positive. Positive things always happen in my life because my mindset is always positive. When you think negative things tend to happen to you. I used to be a very negative person, and negative things were happening, bad things were happening all over. But when you think in positivity, when you think in abundance, when you think in flourishment, then great things will certainly happen to you. The global Dow down 27.28%. The federal funds target rate is still at a dead 0%, meaning benchmark interest rates are at 0%. What does that mean? It means banks are basically borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. Of course, banks do borrow money. Even though they lend money, they're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve at 0% interest. Meaning they lend it to people like myself at maybe 3-4% interest, and they make the difference on the spread. So the banks are basically getting it at 0%. That way they can push out more money into the economy and give out more loans so that we can stabilize the economy. 10-year treasuries, my goodness, it's always scary reading this number, is at a measly, terrible 0.58%. I mean, at that point, you're better off just leaving your money in the bank, honestly. I mean, why in the world would you invest in a 10-year treasury? I mean, it really doesn't make any sense. Down 16 basis points last week, down 133 basis points. Which equals 1.33% over the past 12 months. So what does this all mean? We'll talk about it in a second. But let's look at what's going to happen this week. Let's look at the outlook of this week. Now, the stock market was up tremendously today. Basically talks about pretty much the shutdown of many different states, many different cities. It's exciting to investors, and they're feeling more confident that they can put more money into the market, and they're not selling irrationally or anything like that. Of course, they will be later this week. Investors are some of the most irrational people on the planet. If you truly looked at the stock market and see the decisions that people make, it just doesn't really make any sense. But it's an opportunity for people like yourself and myself to take advantage, understanding the emotions that people go through on a daily basis. For economic reports, the focus this week is on inflation. So inflation is a thing to watch out for this week. The latest price information is available for March with the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which tracks inflation, and the Producer Price Index. Last month, consumer prices inched ahead 0.1%, and we're up 2.3% over the last 12 months, which is pretty good. That means that we're basically still at a 2.3% inflation rate. That's pretty good. that means that the economy is still pretty decent, meaning people are basically still spending money. Producers saw their prices drop by 0.6% in February and are looking for a strong rebound in March. So that's a hint that the stock market might actually be up if inflation is up, because then investors might think, okay, well, if inflation is up, then maybe the economy isn't so bad after all. Inflation is what drives interest rates. Inflation is what drives consumer behavior and all these other things. The higher the inflation is, technically the more expensive things are. And that means that the economy is being more stable. So what I'm predicting, this is a personal prediction, is that the stock market might just be up overall this week. We'll have a positive week for the first time in a long time. So who knows? I mean, I don't know. I can only predict using best judgment, using what I know based off. I'm reading you real, actual facts, real things that are happening. But hopefully that gave you some insight as to what's going on in the economy. Now let's talk about budgeting. I mean, budgeting is a very important topic that we really need to get down packed. In order to make it through COVID-19, this crisis, this recession, this pandemic, all the different buzzy words that you hear, we really have to make sure that we know how to budget appropriately. So today is the good news, is if you don't know how to budget, I'll give you some tips and tricks and pointers as to how to actually formulate a solid budget that you can stick to. And a few updates from things that I've said on this radio show that you might want to pay attention to. So the main reason why we're talking about this today, of course, is because we have this pandemic out there right now called COVID-19 that is causing financial distress amongst a lot of people. The average person before COVID-19 was one missed paycheck away from being bankrupt, being in financial distress. And a lot of people have missed paychecks. So you know what that means? A lot of people are in technical bankruptcy right now, meaning they can't pay their bills on time. Meaning that they can't pay their mortgages. Meaning that they couldn't, if you said that they needed to pay a medical bill, right? If an emergency happened and the bill was $400, they wouldn't even know what to do. They would have to go out and borrow the money. That is what the average person was going through before COVID-19 was happening. Now, can you imagine what the average person is going through now, after or during COVID-19? It is extremely scary. I mean, to be honest, if I was a bank, I would be scared to loan somebody money, a consumer at least. Now, if it's a business that has a good track record, has good payment history, is in a stable industry, recession-proof, I mean, I'll be loaning that person money all day, every day, right? So now you can see as to why the quote-unquote rich get richer is because they have these things in place already. And the quote-unquote, I'll put these in heavy quotes, the poor get poorer, is because they don't prepare themselves when it comes to a lot of these things. Now, you might say, okay, the average person is barely making ends meet. How do they prepare themselves? Well, the first step is you need to formulate a budget. How do you prepare yourself for success for COVID-19 pandemic, relief or anything like that? How do you prepare for that? Is you need to formulate a solid, strict budget that you are stuck to. Warren Buffett has a budget right now. Bill Gates has a budget. I have a budget. So if these folks have budgets, then why in the world shouldn't you? You must have a budget. It is something that we need to be very, very strict about, not just during COVID-19, but the aftermath. And before COVID-19, we should all have solid budgets that we're all sticking to. So the goal of today is to talk to you guys, how do you actually formulate a budget? And we'll talk through the 6-step process to actually formulating a budget, even during the COVID-19 pandemic world. Essentially, now let's talk about another reason why. It's because most Americans don't know how to budget. They don't know how to save. Most Americans are just, and not just Americans too. Nowadays, I'm starting to use the global term because our companies are global. And this whole issue of financial literacy is a global issue. It's not just a U.S. issue. So the average person in the world just doesn't know about this stuff because we were never taught. We were never actually sat down and said, hey, this is how you formulate a budget. We never took classes on this stuff. We learned how to dissect frogs, but never how to dissect our own budgets. We never learned these things. So 6 steps to formulating a budget. The first thing is you need to plan accordingly. You need to go ahead and basically plan Now, what happens when you build a house and it has no foundation? It has no ground, no plans, nothing. It collapses. Same thing with a budget. If you're a person that does not have a personal budget, and I challenge you guys to take notes, take this stuff seriously. This will be recorded, of course, so feel free to rewatch it, take notes. One thing I always tell people, you have to take notes, especially in today's environment where information is plentiful. You can get it pretty much anywhere. But you need to plan accordingly. You need to lay it all out. What is it that you want? Lay out your goal. What is it that you want? What is it that Karen wants over the next 6 months? Do you want a house? Do you want a what lifestyle do you see yourself having? So first and foremost is you need to plan. What do you want your budget to look like? Not what it currently looks like, but what do you want it to look like? Because in order to get to where we need to be, we need to set a vision. We need to set a plan. We need to set the path to where we need to be. Then we backtrack and say, okay, well, where am I currently? By the way, just to give you guys some insight, when we do financial coaching for a client, which is a service that we offer through Badu Financial Coaching LLC, we have a financial fitness program that basically allows us to get somebody financially fit. Well, we sit down with a client and we said, what do you want your future to look like? The first part of the meeting, we sit down for 5 minutes. What do you want? All right? It could be anything. Just lay it all out on paper. Then you have to figure out your income. And by the way, I'll tell you guys a source to automate this process. But you need to figure out what is your monthly income after taxes. I would encourage you to factor in the taxes. So you have a job. Maybe you have a W-2. Maybe you're just laid off, so you have unemployment. Maybe you have a business, so it's your net profit or your net income that ultimately that you're going through. So lay it all out on paper. I challenge you guys to start this process by writing it down. For me, what I used to do is I used to create a notes in my iPhone and just write it down. These are the monthly income sources, specifically down to the penny, that I have coming in every single month. Right now, for me, I automate this process. I know exactly what came in last month in the month of March. I know exactly what came in the month of February. And I can project, using that information, I can project what's going to happen in the month of April, May, June, July, August, and so on and so forth. The next thing is you need to determine your monthly expenses. Rent or mortgage, utilities, child support, groceries. All these different things. Now we're not eating out anymore, right? Now we're not going to the clubs doing bottle service. We're not doing that. So take that out your budget. These are typically expenses that you need. So you lay it all out. Your income, money that's coming in. Then your expenses, money that's going out. Rent, utilities, childcare. Let me see, groceries. All the different expenses in the world that is out there. So just lay it all out on paper. You don't have to be shy. This is you and your budget. This is you versus your budget. This is not you versus the world. Lay it all out. That's one thing I highly challenge you when you're developing your budget, is to be as transparent as you possibly can. Be honest with yourself. Be truthful to yourself. If you know you spend money on hair every month, then please lay it on paper. It doesn't make any sense if you're formulating a budget and you're leaving things out. You're not being transparent with yourself. Transparency and communication can go a very long way in this world that we live in. So lay it all out on paper. For me, it was my iPhone and my notes app. For you, it might be just a sheet of paper and a pen that just lays it all out. In our financial, full disclosure, in our Badu Foundation that's about to come out, released in June, or about to be released in June, what we do is every single student, every single person that joins our program, it's a free program, by the way, that teaches financial literacy to the youth and the homeless or people experiencing homelessness. We give them, one of the first things we give them as part of homework is to lay out a budget on paper. We give them a budget. It's already made, a budget spreadsheet. And we hand them a pen. We say, make sure you lay it all out on paper. Hey, if it's a kid, all they might have is, I don't know, maybe a phone bill, maybe whatever it is. So we're teaching kids how to be responsible at a very young age and how to be transparent with themselves. And then we teach them how to make income. You need to multiply your income streams as much as you can, right? For me, I knew that one stream of income. I used to rely on one stream of income when I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers at PwC. Ever since then, I became so scared that I expanded it to over 20 streams of income. Right, 20 sources of income, 20 income streams, because I became so scared that if a pandemic like COVID-19 ever was to happen, man, it would be bad. However, if I prepared myself financially by expanding my income streams and not contracting it, it would be pretty good. I'll tell you one thing, I'm not somebody who's complaining about COVID-19 from a financial standpoint, you know. And that's because I've been fortunate enough, I've been blessed enough to be prepared for a position like this. Because I knew that if something like this were to happen, reading all the news about the crisis, man, you should have seen how many movies I watched over the 2008 financial crisis and what happened to people. I said, you know what? Had people just been a little more prepared, this crisis might have been it would still have been a crisis no matter what, like we're going through right now. But man, people have been so much financially prepared. And I said it time and time again. I started getting on the radio in 2016. And I said time and time again that we need to make sure that we're being prepared for the worst. Not just the good times, but also the bad times. Because you never know when these bad times will happen. Right? Not saying anybody predicted COVID-19. Trust me. Nobody that I know predicted COVID-19. Nobody that I know, at least. But there are certain things that we need to do or we can do in order to prepare ourselves. How do we do that? We formulate a budget. That was actually my first radio segment. It was on budgeting. Budgeting 101. When I do talks, I do over 100 presentations throughout the year. One of the first things I always cover is budgeting. And the first thing is you need to plan. Second thing, you need to be very transparent with yourself. Be honest, be truthful. Lay it all out on paper. Lay out your income streams. Lay out all your expenses. It's not that hard to come up with these numbers. You see it on your monthly statements every month. Dig through, pull through your monthly statements and determine what are those expenses that are coming out. Now, what this allows you to do is it allows you to come up with what's called your take-home pay, or basically your disposable income. Disposable income allows you to see how much is left over after you've drilled down your expenses. Income minus expenses equals disposable income. This is an extremely important number to know because it allows you to see if you need to increase your income. If your disposable income is low or negative, you can do one of two things or both. For me, I did one thing. Actually, I did both, to be honest. You can increase your income. I multiply my income streams from 1 to over 20. I also cut my expenses. Anything that I did not need, I got rid of it. I do a 3-month analysis on my expenses. If I see that the expense is just sucking the blood out of me and I don't need it, I'm going to get rid of it straight up. If I don't need it, why have it? Why let it be something that drains my budget? I'll give you some example. Luxurious dinners. Things that we just don't need. Like stuff that, that monthly subscription. I found out that I wasn't watching cable, for example. So why in the world do I have a cable bill every month? It didn't make any sense. Why not subscribe to a Netflix where I watch a lot of movies? To the point where I had to hire a personal chef because they were actually less expensive than me going out to eat, or just me not having time to cook every now and then, because the chef basically was able to cook. Now, of course, I have my beautiful fiance who handles all the cooking needs. Of course, I chime in whenever I can. Which will save you a lot of money, by the way, just so you guys know. Cooking is very good to do, especially in a time like this where we're all forced to stay home anyway. So if you don't have the skill, I know there's a lot of memes out there about this, but if you don't have a cooking skill, I challenge you guys to develop a skill for cooking. I've been cooking since I was 13 years old. So for me, I've learned how to cook. I went through college. 4 years or 5 years pretty much as a single bachelor. I had to make ends meet. I had to go out and cook and make food on my own. And I won't get into all the details about other things, but I had to learn how to cook. That's what it came down to. So perhaps it's time to cook and get rid of all these dinings and eating outs. What COVID-19 has forced us to do is it's forced us to cut our budgets, of our habits of eating out. I'm never a proponent of not going on vacation, but to be honest, some of these vacations, they're just too excessive. That one, honestly, I'll leave it up to you to decide how you want to handle your vacation life. But they were a little too excessive. Just every single month you're traveling somewhere and all that. Unless you're doing really, really good financially, I don't think you really should. I don't think it's in your budget's best interest to go out and do something like that. Traveling is great. For me, traveling takes me in a whole different world. It allows me to come up with ideas. It allows me to be free. I can think straight, not so much pressure in America. I try to stay away from America when I'm traveling. When I went to Jamaica last year in December, it was so free. Being on the beaches, riding the horses. It was a very free space for you to think and actually say, okay, well, let me just reflect on life, reminisce on life a little bit. So traveling is good. So I would say just handle that one with caution. Of course, me personally, I travel about 4 times a year or so. Now, so income minus expenses equals disposable income. Now, when you form a budget, one thing you don't do is you don't just leave it 12 months and then come back to it. No. You got to continuously monitor this and adjust where necessary. If you see that you're overspending in a certain area, maybe try to cut. I'm not a big fan of cutting expenses, by the way. But we all know those expenses that we don't need. I'm more of a fan of boosting my income. I'm trying to find out as many income streams as possible. I'm trying to get this rental property here, that rental property there, so I can boost my income stream so that I don't have to worry about cutting expenses in areas that I know that I'll need. I hate cutting expenses. I'll be the first one to tell you. I absolutely hate cutting expenses, but we all do. We have to do that sometimes. So income minus expenses equals disposable income. If you need an automated way of doing this, go to mint.com, link your bank accounts, and start auto-populating, automating the process. I've been walking a few people through this process. Remember, this is what we do as part of our financial coaching. Shameless plug, we offer financial coaching through our financial fitness program, where we basically take you through a week, 1 year of just really holding your hand and making sure you're financially fit and prepared for scenarios like this. And we have heard some great feedback from folks that have gone through that program. You can always renew the program, by the way. And in our Badu Foundation, basically we allow the youth and people experiencing homeless to get our program for free. And it'll be funded by the government and other donors and myself, of course. I'll be putting my own money into it. We'll be giving out scholarships, stipends to the homeless to get a home and all that good stuff. So that'll be released in June. We're working on the paperwork right now. My attorneys are working on that. Just really, really getting something down. The Facebook page will be up pretty soon on that. So just so you guys have insight on what I'm working on. We're working on a foundation, and we're also working on a wealth management company to basically handle or manage people's investments directly. So Mint, mint.com, is an awesome and tremendous way for you to consistently monitor your budget on an automated basis. The more you can automate this, the better it would be. Maybe the reason why you don't want to do it is because it's probably not automated enough. So I do want to challenge you guys to make sure you automate. Now, keep in mind that when we're planning, we're setting annual and monthly budget. So we have an annual budget that basically it's a prediction of what's going to happen throughout the year. And then we have a monthly budget that basically lays out what's going to happen throughout the months. Now, I do challenge you to set goals, set that vision. Remember, in order to enjoy life, right? In order to truly enjoy life, you need to know where you want to be. What is your vision? What is your outlook? What is it that you want? What is it that, Nana wants? What is it that Tiara wants? Jasmine wants? What is it that you truly want? Right? So you have to set a vision as to what you want. And as part of our financial coaching, it's more of a mental thing that we do with clients is we set a vision. We make you lay out a vision, write 5 things on paper that you want this year. right? So lay out the vision, and then we look at where you are, and basically the budget is part of what helps you get from where you are to where you need to be, essentially. Now let's go on here. We got about 5 more minutes left. We are a little short on time. I got a training session for my team after this. So excuse me if I'm rushing through this a little bit. But annual budget, remember, get set before the year begins, just so you have a projection. I personally have an annual budget. It allows me to see how my year is going to look so that I can make the best financial decisions. Your monthly budget is consistently updated based off real-life events. Maybe a big medical bill that you know is about to happen, so you put that into your expenses category as a one-time expense. Remember, please utilize mint.com, mint.com. Excuse me. It is a great personal financial tool. It is free, by the way, free 99. It is a great way to go ahead and take advantage, you know. For those that don't like automated, I challenge you to change your ways. I mean, a lot of people are so stuck in their ways. If COVID-19 hasn't taught you anything, it should have taught you to really, really adjust and adapt to different environments. Be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? You know, so anytime Amazon or these companies throw you a hint that, hey, maybe the world is going virtual, AI and, you know, all these other crazy acronyms that are coming out, you need to really watch out. So if the world is going automated, then you probably shouldn't be pencil and paper. You probably should be going automated, right? Because we're way behind. If you're not automated yet, you're way behind the scale. Way behind. You need to be automated. You need to have things that are flowing in automatically. Mint.com, that's helping you keep track of your budget. Every Friday or so, they'll throw an alert at you saying, hey, you're over your budget in this category, so you need to go and review it. They even have your personal credit score on there so you can keep track of your credit. But if you're one of those that pretty much in the old times, people say I'm old school. I'm like, man, old school ain't making no money right now. So, but you can use a manual budgeting template. So you can basically use an Excel spreadsheet. If you need one, shoot me an email at jeffbadu@gmail.com. Once again, jeffbadu@gmail.com, jeffbadu@gmail.com, jeffbadu@gmail.com. I will send you a budgeting template, one that's manual, in case you don't want to use mint.com. Also, I can send you a personal financial statement template that you can use. But ultimately, knowing your disposable income allows you to see how much you can save, how much you can invest. So the question as to how much should I save, how much should I invest? Well, it's all dependent upon your disposable income. Just a quick tip, how much you should save, it's 6 months, not just 3 months now. It is 6 months of expenses. So if you look at your expenses, you tally them up, you need to have at least 6 months liquid cash in the bank. Whether it's paying you interest or not, you need to have 6 months liquid in a time like this to be prepared financially, because we don't know what's about to happen. But 6 months is usually a good period of time for you to be able to recover financially. Nobody on this planet I know is going to go 6 months without some stream of income. So I do highly challenge you guys to get that going. Remember, if you need the template, please shoot me an email at jeffbadu@gmail.com. Right, jeffbadu@gmail.com. I'll be able to send you the template. So that is how you get to know about how much you can save and how much you can invest, or should save and should invest. You have to know your budget. So homework for tonight, guys. I hate giving homework. Well, homework for tonight is go on mint.com, sign up for an account. It is free. We're always scared of, and you know, I mean, we got to keep it real. Right, this is a pandemic we're going through. We need to do anything that is at our fingertips that helps us get financially ahead. So income minus expenses minus taxes equals disposable income. Now with disposable income, you do not have to dispose of it. But that's pretty much the segment today, guys. Appreciate you guys for listening. Next week, we'll talk about how to invest in the stock market in the COVID-19 environment. Right. We'll just keep it going. So we talked about saving a few weeks ago. We talked about budgeting today. Income minus expenses minus taxes equals disposable income. And you need to have 6 months worth of expenses saved in the bank right now. Next, we'll talk about how do you invest? How do you invest in the stock market, which we can apply that same principle. If we listen and take careful, detailed notes, we'll be able to apply this across other investments. I started in the stock market back in 2013, and I applied the same principles, buy low, sell high, and all that other good stuff. We'll talk about that next week. We can apply those same principles, basically, to everything. And by the way, I will send you guys updates or anything. I am doing a few classes at the Chicago Urban League that might interfere with my schedule a little bit. We're still finalizing that because of COVID-19. But we should have a radio segment next week. If not, then we'll have one the following week. Please stay posted on Facebook and social media on that. But, yeah, that's a segment. Let me go ahead and end this. Remember, we'll be back. We'll talk about stocks, investing, and things of that nature. All the fun stuff. This budgeting stuff is really, it's basic stuff, but it's still stuff that we really need to do in order to get ahead financially. So thank you all for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice and music, your station. My name is Chef Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. Thank you.